Hey Dave, I have a joke for you to start off this interview.
Okay. Go
Here's here's my joke.
ahead.
What's Hercules' favorite type of exercise?
Oh boy.
Think about that for a second. What's Hercules' favorite type of exercise?
It can't be a typical exercise. What is it?
The answer is mythical lifts.
Oh, geez.
Now, now see, all right, well, there you go. There's the joke for this time. It wasn't very good. I'm going to work on that a little bit. Dave, do you have any jokes about, Hercules or anything like that? You're a good
No, I
storyteller.
I did read somewhere when Joe Levine was promoting Hercules initially in '59, he was saying to people, "I'm going to call it Ben Hercules."
That's better than the one I had.
Okay.
I worked on mine so hard, and you just came off the top of your head with that one.
No, as you know, it was the same year as Ben Hur, '59.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but obviously, it was just a joke on his part.
Well, welcome back, Dave. We have Dave Dowling back here, and if you need to catch up, then we look on the channel and you'll see interview number one with Dave Dowling. He's the co-author of Steve Reeves, His Legacy in Films, along with George Helmer. I need to change that at the bottom because Dave is the co-author along with George Helmer, and they wrote this fantastic book called Steve Reeves, His Legacy in Films, which I was just reviewing right before. Welcome, Dave. What's going on?
Well, staying busy here. We have winter. We have 8 inches of snow, and staying busy. Even though I'm retired, I'm
Uh,
staying.
it's it's
Yeah,
easy to stay busy when you're retired. I know
it is.
what you mean. So
Well,
it will keep you busy. There's always something.
yep, yep.
hmm
It is. There is.
So why don't we talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about your background? I don't know if our audience knows, other than you're a very famous co-author of Steve Reeves, His Legacy and Film book. You're also very famous because you knew Steve Reeves. Doggone it, I never got to meet him, but you did.
Yeah.
So what, though, I know you have other things going on in your background. Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, I spent my career in technical writing, and actually, I should back up. Before that, I have a master's degree in communications, and in '75 to '77, I worked for American Top 40 in North Hollywood, California, for Casey Kasem and that crew.
Oh
And
yeah.
And then I was laid off, unfortunately. And in '77, I moved to Long Island, started a career in technical writing for a company called Sperry Rand. And then I moved upstate New York and worked for IBM until our division was sold. We went to Lockheed. All told, I was a technical writer for 35 years, and I've done some corporate training on the side. And I've also done some consulting since I was retired. I retired in 2010.
hmm
2010.
So you are
So
keeping yourself busy
yeah,
still, even though you retired 14 years ago now.
yeah. And I wrote a couple of grammar books. One's called the Wrong Word Dictionary. It's about it's about confused word pairs like affect and effect and principle and principle. And then
hmm
my other book was the Dictionary of Worthless Words.
So if people wanted to pick those up, they could just Google those titles. Is that right?
Yeah,
Or
the Wrong Word Dictionary is only available in hardcover, and the other one, Dictionary of Worthless Words, is softcover and Kindle.
okay,
So,
perfect. So on Amazon, you can get whatever you need on Amazon. You can probably buy a rocket ship these days on
oh,
Amazon. So
absolutely, absolutely.
look for Dave's books on Amazon. Well, Dave is fascinating, and I've known Dave for a long time, since 2008, since the Steve Reeves Fitness and Film Festival, where Dave was a presenter on stage with his very, very interesting presentation. And here we are again, 16 years later. Well, thank you for sharing your background. Okay, so we had a fantastic testimonial from this person. It looks like it's Arion Blakeston. 6 hours ago, I was a chubby, weak little boy when I first discovered Steve Reeves in a Weeder collection of beginning workouts. Steve Reeves was the most inspiring workout because I got amazingly quick, noticeable results by following his instructions to the letter. His practice of doing exercises slowly and deliberately with a very wide reach with all maneuvers was magic. Steve insisted every workout should include a pre-workout routine so there would be conditioning and preparation of the muscle so no injuries would be caused by just immediately lifting weights. I'm going to fast forward to this. Steve Reeves took a young, weak, sickly boy who was seriously considering how to commit suicide and turned me into a powerful, self-confident teenager who would never look back, no matter what adversity or seemingly impossible challenges came my way during my 78-year-old life. Steve was the best friend I never got to meet. He saved my life.
Oh, very nice.
Wow,
Very,
that is fantastic.
quite a testimonial. Yeah.
Fantastic testimonial. Thank you for sending that. And you guys share your testimonials. I know there have been others. That one just popped up today. So before we get into our interview with Dave, I just want to pass along an announcement that I'm really excited about and that might include Dave Dowling here. So on May 16th of 2024, I am announcing a Steve Reeves retreat or a Golden Era gathering. There have been other retreats in physical culture, and so I love the idea of get-togethers. You know, the Steve Reeves Fitness and Film Festival, Dave, from 2008 was a fantastic experience. I still have people talk to me about that went or wish they could have gone.
Mm.
And so, you know, now that COVID has come and gone, hopefully gone, it's a time where we can get together again and, you know, start a community for physical culture. And so that's what I'm choosing to do here is take action and do something like this. Being in the fitness industry, I've done fitness retreats before, so this is nothing new. So this is a Steve Reeves retreat this year, May 16th through May 18th, 2024. It will be held on a private 10-acre estate 40 minutes outside of Austin, Texas, which is where I'm from. It's limited to 10 guests. If this is interesting to you, check the link below this video and you can find out more. We have a early bird discount of $250 in place as of right now. That discount goes away in 17 days. I would love to see you there. This is for Steve Reeves fans. This is for fans of physical culture to get together, and you can see the schedule at the website, which is going to be, the link will be posted below this video. Dave has also expressed an interest in coming, and we are certainly in talks with that. And Dave, what do you have to say about this? What are your thoughts? Anything you want to add to this?
Oh no, I think it'd be a great get together. I remember, and as you remember, the festival, the Steve Reeves Festival in 2008, that went over very well. And the people who heard about it regretted they weren't there. And I think this is the same kind of thing. I mean, I've seen your agenda. It's very well laid out, very well thought out. And I think it'd be a big hit. I think it'd be a big hit.
Well, thank you. Dave has helped me with the agenda and he's given me some tips, very useful tips here and there, and there's more to come. But right now, this is what we have. This is in play. This is the date, and the link, if you want to find out more, is below the video that you're watching right now.
That was done for Steve. The myth is he did all his own stunts. That's what is really a myth. So
Great.
talk
Let's
about
keep
that.
going.
Oh, just keep going.
Let's keep going. Yeah, you're on a roll.
Okay. Yeah, there's a misunderstanding out there in some of the things I've read that Steve did the majority of all his own stunts. That's not true. Steve had help. Well, let me back up. Clint Eastwood had a double or stunt double, whatever. John Wayne did. Burt Reynolds did. Michael Douglas, maybe not Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise does many of his own stunts, maybe all of them. But the word is risk. The reason why they have stunt doubles is to avoid risk. Risk on the central character of the star, or the risk on the film itself, the production, and all the investors. If something happens to the star, that's the end of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve had a stunt double in all his films. He mainly had one stunt double that made his first appearance in Morgan the Pirate, as I remember it. His name was Giovanni Cianfriglia, and Steve would refer to him as Johnny. He was with him for about 7 films. And he wasn't under exclusive contract, but he had a contract for every film. And if you look for him, he makes an obvious appearance in a lot of the films. Trojan Horse, Morgan the Pirate, Thief of Baghdad. If you go looking for him, you just have to slow the video and you'll see him. He was built similar to Steve with the wide shoulders, small waist. He didn't have the legs. The legs are a dead giveaway. But Steve did use a stunt double from the beginning. If you look at Hercules, there's a scene toward the end where he goes through the trap door. Just freeze frame that. That's not Steve on the trap door. Hercules Unchained, obviously it's a stunt double with the lion. And actually I've seen a lobby card from the back of supposedly Steve in the chariot. It's a stunt double. I don't remember seeing it in the film though. But anyway, Giovanni was with him a long time. And he also did stunts for other actors over there. And there's a video out there. Actually, I think I have it here. There's this video here on Duel of the Titans. It's a foreign video. And there's also the same video on this one, Thief of Baghdad. There's a 7-minute video out there. And it's taken in 2006. That's when it's shot. And he talks about Steve. And he talks about some of the things they did together. He was talking about Morgan the Pirate. But they became very close friends. Giovanni is 88 today, lives in Italy. And every so often I'll see a picture of him. But he enjoyed working with Steve. He would go over to Steve's residence at the time. And he said Steve always ate healthy. And he said Steve's wife was a great cook, but he did depend on Steve. But there were times between Steve's films when the Giovanni had nothing to do, and he would have to ask Steve permission. I want to do stunt work in this film, and Steve would say, "Yeah, sure, but don't make it look too good because it makes me look bad." Okay.
That makes me chuckle a little bit because I remember. I think when they started filming Hercules Unchained, correct me if I'm wrong, but they would see other crews along the beach or along wherever the place was, and they would see very similar crews. So it makes me wonder if Johnny was like, "Hey, let me go over here to where they're filming this one, and now I can go back over here," and they'd be like doing stunts at like 2 or 3 locations because they were all close together. I don't know if that's true or not. Probably not, but it just makes me laugh.
Yeah, no, it's possible. But I don't think Steve would allow that.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, he was a fantastic athlete. Steve said he's a former boxer, acrobat, very quick on his feet. Reg Park always complimented him. He didn't do stunt doubles for Reg Park, but he was in one of Reg's films, Hercules the Avenger. But Giovanni, Steve actually let him in a few of it, not let him in, put him in a few of his films. He had a small speaking part in The Slave, a small speaking part in Duel of the Titans, and a small speaking part in Sandokan the Great. And other than that, he was in some of the wide shots, you would see him, but he did the majority of Steve's stunts. And go ahead.
That's interesting. I know Arnold had a stunt man, and I know Arnold would also great friends with Franco Columbo and would have Franco be in bit parts in some of his movies, like Conan the Barbarian, when Franco runs and jumps on the big boulder right before the town is invaded.
Yeah.
So you got to think that Steve and Johnny, I'll just call him Johnny, must have been really close because, you work so closely together. That guy must be a wealth of information about Steve.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to interview him. He said that Steve would say, "Look, you got to be in bed by 9 o'clock. We got a tough day tomorrow. We got a tough day tomorrow." Steve was rigid, but, he showed up. He did his job. He was never late, knew his lines and everything, and he expected that of others. But he taught Steve how to fence. And there's a scene on the beach in Morgan the Pirate. The close-ups are Steve, but not the long shots. That's Giovanni. And Steve taught him how to be actually a better actor and a better horseman too.
Hmm.
So it was a trade-off there.
And
But
did Giovanni speak English?
not that I know of. Not that I know of. He could have had broken English. I would think he had some broken English if they
Hmm.
spent that much time together off the
Yeah.
set. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because Steve knew Italian.
he picked up Italian, he picked up French, and he picked up Spanish. But Steve's wife, Ailen, knew at least four languages, at least four.
Right. Right. Yeah, she was brilliant.
Yeah, she was. She was the one who negotiated the contracts, make sure all the everything was kept in order. And Richard Harrison, uh, he was a sword and sandal Euro spy, martial arts actor. Oh, he made many films, more than Steve. He
Hmm.
told me at Steve's funeral, he said Aileen was responsible for Steve's personality. He said he said that was the best thing that ever happened to Steve Reeves is meeting Aileen.
Interesting.
Yeah, yep.
I
So
wonder in what way was she responsible for his personality? You mean like from a business standpoint?
yes, I think Steve was basically a shy person,
Hmm.
and I think when he had to do his press interviews, I think she told him, "Look, you really have to be a little more extroverted. You have to don't just answer yes and no. You have to
Hmm.
elaborate, stuff like that." So yeah, she
And
was a well-rounded person.
sure was. I'm fascinated with her as well. All the people that Steve, was friends with, and
Yeah.
of course Sandra as well. Uh, a side note on Aline, I had heard that she was a cigarette smoker. Can you confirm that?
Yes,
I
she
don't
was.
I don't think it's a big secret.
No, she was. She was, and it's a surprise to a lot of us, that he married a cigarette smoker. But I don't know to what extent. You know, one cigarette a day. I don't know.
Yeah, well now I can't advertise my Jag as a non-smoking car.
Maybe he didn't start to smoke in there.
I don't know. It sounds like she was, not taking anything from Steve, so if she wanted to smoke, maybe she just did it. I have no idea. I did look in the ashtray. There's two separate ashtrays in the front seat of
Yeah.
the Jag. One's for the driver, one's for the passenger. And
Yeah.
I have to admit, the passenger ashtray looks like it was used,
Uh,
whereas the driver ashtray sparkling clean, as you might imagine. So
no.
anyway, yes, Aline was a fascinating woman. I think,
Yeah.
her background is that's a whole nother, conversation.
Yeah. But she was wonderful to Steve, and he was so lucky to meet her. And she was his agent. She was his wife. She was his love. She was his guide.
She was a
Every,
princess,
yeah, I've read that. I've read that. I don't know what family.
a
She,
Polish prince.
mhm.
Her dad was a Polish prince.
I just want to add something. Even when Steve was retired, Aileen, she was a filter. If you called Steve at his house to arrange a book signing or whatever, he would say, "Just a minute, you can talk to my wife." And I think that's what happened to George Helmer when he first called Steve. George said he looked in the phone book and saw Steve Reeves. He called, and I don't know if Steve answered the phone or his wife, but George wanted Steve to appear at the opening of one of George's gyms.
Right,
And that's when Steve said, "You'll have to talk to my wife." And she
right.
did all the business.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
And he drove the Jag down to George's gym. And George told me that he remembers seeing Steve, coming out of the Jag across the parking lot. So,
Yeah. Yep.
that's pretty cool. But you're right, she was kind of like his business manager. I have another guy who told me the same thing. He looked up Steve Reeves' name in the phone book, and she answered the phone,
Mhm.
Aileen, and so she was kind of the filter. But
Right.
anyway, she was a wonderful woman. She died in 1989 of a
Yeah.
stroke, I
Yeah.
believe.
She was in her 50s. Yeah, she was in her 50s.
Only in her 50s. My
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. No, I think Steve was in Montana at the time. I know he wasn't home. So,
Hmm.
yeah. No, it took him a while, obviously, to get over that. Well, Steve Reeves and Joseph E. Levine weren't always the best of buddies either. You know, I,
Right.
I'll tell you a footnote about that. Steve had other opportunities while his career went along. Like after Hercules, you started getting popular. And Steve found out that Joseph E. Levine was telling people, well, Steve Reeves is under strict contract to me. And so that eliminated some opportunities. And Steve wasn't too happy he found that out. So anyway.
Joseph E. Levine, I just saw he was 5'4".
Mm.
Isn't that something? Because if you have Joseph and Steve stand next to each other, Steve 6'1", Joseph Levine 5'4".
Yeah.
Wow, what a combination.
Yeah, I know. No. But Steve always said Joseph E. Levine was a great promoter. There's no doubt.
Great promoter. I
Great
mean, he
promoter.
started a trend in promotion when the way he promoted Hercules, just
Oh
unbelievable.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
type of promoting had never been done before.
No,
And
no.
so the guy was a incredible genius. Of course, he knew what was, really strong in Europe, but wasn't, really heard of in the United States. And he had the mindset to say
Right.
this will be popular. I mean, you know
Right.
all this because you wrote the book on it. But yeah, he's
Oh,
another really interesting character.
oh no, he is. He is. I mean, it wasn't the first film that he bought the U.S. rights to because he
Mm-hmm.
did earlier. He did Godzilla. He did Attila with Anthony Quinn. He did Ulysses with Kirk Douglas. But when he went over and heard, well, it was through a middle person. He heard about Hercules. It was so popular overseas that helped Levine, shape his mindset. And then he bought it for 120,000, and he spent 10 times as much on the promotion. Well, it paid off. He made a lot of money,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
he worked hard. So
Yes, he did. Absolutely. That was an incredible amount of work. He must have just been doing stuff nonstop, for the promotion of that. So many little details that had to be covered,
yeah.
just incredible.
When Levine acquired Hercules, there was already an English dub soundtrack, and he didn't like it. And I think that's the one that went over to Great Britain. So he had it redone. There was a different voice for Steve and the whole cast, and he had it redone. And years later, there's a Hercules DVD that has both soundtracks on it. The soundtrack changes two-thirds of the way into the film, and you can hear the British version and you can hear the American version.
Mm.
So, but anyway, so just a little footnote on that. So,
And what is your favorite film, would you say, of all the Steve Reeves films? I mean, I'm assuming it's Hercules, but you never know.
no, it's not.
It's not.
No, it's not. I mean, I admire the film. Morgan the Pirate. Is,
Okay.
Morgan the Pirate to me was the most, that and Thief of Baghdad, more Morgan the Pirate was the most Americanized film. And it was also photographed by the same cinematographer who did Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Once Upon a
Mm-hmm.
Time in the
Mm-hmm.
West,
Mm-hmm.
Once Upon a Time in America. Um, Tonino Della Colli, I think. He's not with us anymore. But the photography, I think, is fantastic. I like the soundtrack. But that's also the film where I was saying the director, Andre de Toth from the US, on his sabbatical in Europe, he made like 3 films when he was over in Italy. He told his actors, look, if you can speak English, you speak English to Steve, so I get the right reaction. And a lot of if you see some of the scenes, because I even asked Steve about Morgan the Pirate, the guy he had the sword fight with, or
Mm-hmm.
almost the swordfish. But he had the sword fight. I said to Steve, I said, was he? I noticed that. Look, I could have swore he's speaking English. He said he did speak English to me, but he was French.
Oh.
So those 2 scenes, when you see him together, he is speaking English to Steve, and that's what Andre de Toth did. But the scale of the film, unfortunately, most of Steve's films, the American version is truncated, and that's one of them. There's about 10 minutes in the European version. Another film that's truncated quite well is Duel of the Titans. Even Gordon Scott told me that. He said, oh, you're missing 20 minutes of it. It's not 20, but it's at least 15. And then there was one more. Was it the Trojan Horse? Oh, I know what it was. Goliath and the Barbarians. I think our version is 86 minutes and the European version is about 100 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they just wanted to cut back on the violence. I
Cut
don't know.
back on the violence. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just guessing. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So we were kind of shortchanged. But getting back to your question, yeah, I enjoy watching Morgan the Pirate. Yeah, I've seen it many times, and I think Steve's acting was very good in it. I think was very good in it. So, and
And that was Cello Alonso, right, as his co-star?
right, she was in that as well as Goliath and the
Well, of
Barbarian.
course, everybody loves that movie because
Yeah,
of her. Beautiful woman.
yeah, yeah. And his leading lady is still around in France, Valérie Lagrange. She became famous more over there, not acting, but as a singer. And she's living in France somewhere today. So
Well, that's good to hear. And, Mylene from let's see, what was Mylene's move? She had one or two movies with Steve. Demigod?
yeah, I know it's a tough name. Let me try. It's I think Mylène de Morchot. So,
Okay, boy, I butchered that.
but let's call her Mylene.
She
And
passed, as you know, she passed away a year or two ago, and I really wish I could have reached out to her
yeah,
and had some sort of, correspondence, but it's too bad.
she passed away. I think it was December of 22,
22.
2022. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that film. I mean, there's another film where the working title or the title in Europe was Battle of Marathon. They put Steve Reeves in it for America. It's Giant Marathon, just like we had Goliath and the Barbarians. Overseas, they had the Terror of the Barbarians. But I remember reading one of Steve's letters that George Helmer has, the handwritten letters. And Steve was approached by the producer of that film, Giant Marathon, that let's call it Mylene. Sorry for the mispronunciation, but she was up and coming. She wasn't a real established star, but she wanted pretty much cold billing with Steve. And he said, okay, but I don't want to have any facial hair in that film. And they said, you got it. Because Steve did not like facial hair. He didn't like a mustache, didn't like a beard, none of that. So that was the agreement Steve gave. But I read in her book, actually, I don't know if you can see it there, but
Yeah, sure can.
yeah, I had to translate when they were talking about the Battle of Marathon in here, not Giant Marathon. She said, this goes back to what our first video was about last time we did about Steve working out on the set. She said, Steve, 10 minutes before every scene would be working out. And right after that, he put this baby oil all over him. And she said, sometimes, I had to wait. I had to wait for him.
Had to
Okay.
wait for him to get pumped up.
You had to wait. Well, he's the star of the film.
Yeah, yeah.
So then she said, one time he had to pick me up, and she says, I slipped right out of his arms. And she also said that, back then they would supply these box lunches on the set, and Steve wanted nothing to do with it.
hmm
She said he ate a lot of tomatoes, he ate a lot of cheese, a lot of milk, a lot of fruit, but he did
hmm
not want what was in those box lunches. And
hmm
I talked to him once in Falls Church in '96. I said, Steve, how was the food overseas when you're filming? He said it was okay. He says a lot of pasta though, a lot of pasta. Well, you would expect, you
hmm
expect that. But he said it was good. Everything tasted good, but he had to keep his weight.
Yeah.
He didn't want the front porch or anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, some of those, like those box meals that you mentioned, I don't know what was in them, but I'm guessing there were preservatives and other, like sodium and things like that. And they
Yeah,
definitely would make you bloat within seconds, depending on, the individual. So I could understand why he would want to
yeah,
keep everything really tight and, only eat things that he knew how his body was going to respond to. Makes a lot of sense.
yes, yes, yes.
Where do you want to go from here? We were talking about myths with Dave Dowling.
Yeah, I just want to get back to that stunt double. I don't know if you can edit this in, but
Sure.
if you're ever in doubt about Steve doing all his own stunts or whatever, look at The White Warrior, his
hmm
third film over there, and it wasn't Giovanni, but that I would have to say that is the most obvious place where stunt double for Steve Reeves was used. And there's a scene where Steve escapes captivity and he rides a horse into this ballroom. And that is Steve on the horse. But then there's a jump over a table, a
Mm-hmm.
jump over the piano, and a
Mm-hmm.
jump out the window.
Window, yeah.
That is not Steve. The rumor
Okay.
is it was Alan Steele. That was his movie name. I think it was Sergio Chianti or something like that, who was with him in Giant Marathon. He actually had a role. And then also in White Warrior, at the very end of the film, there's hand-to-hand combat for about 5 or 6 minutes. That is definitely not Steve. That is definitely, and as I said earlier, all you have to do just freeze frame
Mm-hmm.
your recorder, and
Okay.
you'll see it. So, but
Okay.
White Warrior,
Interesting.
White Warrior was a little different too because they had two production units. Because they told Steve, Steve said, "I want to be home for the Christmas holidays in 1958." And they said, "No problem." So they were shooting in parallel, and I think Steve was already home under the Christmas tree when they were shooting that final
Mm-hmm.
scene where this hand-to-hand combat, where it's obviously not Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some long shots where it's supposed to be Steve on a horse, and it's not. And as I said, he was a cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up on a ranch, or he loved horses. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, so yeah, that's just a final note on stunt doubling.
Well, that's really, really interesting. And I'd heard the name Alan Steele. He was built like a bodybuilder as well.
Yeah.
He might have actually competed in bodybuilding. So yeah, I was familiar with him. Well, that's fascinating. You mentioned the fact that, Steve being a cowboy and from Montana.
Oh, there you go.
Have you heard of this book or have you read it? It's called It's Hard to Kill a Cowboy.
No, I
And it's written by Claire Boyce. But Claire wrote this book, It's Hard to Kill a Cowboy, with his daughter, Sharon Boyce. And Goldie Boyce, Boyce was Goldie's maiden name
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
before she got married. This was her family, the Boyces. So this gives you real interesting information. There is some stuff in here about Steve, not much. I wish I could remember what it was. It's been a while since I read this book. I was just curious if you had read it or
No,
heard of it.
no, I haven't heard of it. But speaking of books, when I was with Steve in North Carolina, Burlington, I was sitting right next to him at his autograph table. And during the lull, he had Hackenschmidt's book,
Mm-hmm.
The Way to Live.
The Way to Live,
It,
yes.
it looked like one of the original copies. It was pretty old.
Somebody had loaned him or let him, somebody brought it to the contest and he took it. And I remember your article on this. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so he's going through it and he says, "That's not right. That's not right." He says, I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Here, put your hands behind your back. Put them like this. Now, do you think you could pick up a bar and pull it up this high?" I said,
Oh, so this was George Hackenschmidt, obviously very well known, very famous in physical culture, very intelligent guy. I believe he gave talks at Harvard, and he was really good in philosophy. He knew a lot about philosophy, and
yeah.
he was extremely athletic, George Hackenschmidt. He
Hmm.
actually was at the 1948 Mr. Universe, where Steve came in second to John Grimmick.
Yeah.
He was one of the judges, actually, George Hackenschmidt. And I
Yeah.
have that trophy, Steve's trophy from the 1948 Mr. Universe, the runner-up trophy. And
Yeah.
it blows my mind to think George Hackenschmidt might have handled that trophy. He may have presented it to Steve. He may have looked at it at some
Yeah.
point over the
Yeah.
weekend. But yeah, that's interesting. I've seen pictures of Steve and George Hackenschmidt as well.
Okay. You mentioned that at the 48. Um, the same time when I was in North Carolina, we left dinner. I got two stories actually, but I'll finish this.
Great.
Um,
I got all day, man.
I know. We were in this big SUV, and I was in the back, the last bench, and then Steve and his partner Deborah in front of me, and then the host and his wife were up there. And the host said, "Mr. Reeves," he didn't call him Steve, he says, "Mr. Reeves, what about the 48 contest? Did John Grimmick really beat you and all that?" And Steve said,
Okay, wait a minute now. So the driver asked this?
"Well, no, the host of the show
Oh, the host of the show. So he
it was
was
his car."
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So he was very well versed on Steve's
Yeah,
bodybuilding career to be
he was
able to ask that question.
yeah, he was a chiropractor, Dr. Noah. I remember that. And so we asked him the question about the Grimmick Reeves contest. And Steve, without hesitation, oh yeah, John Grimmick won that fair and square. Just like that, you know, and then we moved on. But the other story I wanted to tell you was when we were leaving the restaurant, it was a beautiful Italian restaurant. Well, I got two stories there, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
We ordered off the menu. There was only about 10 of us in the room. We ordered off the menu, and I think I had chicken or something like that. I don't know what Steve ordered. I don't know what it's called, but the portion of food that came out, it was a mound of
Hmm.
pasta and spinach and something else. It was like a plate that you would pass around in family style.
Yeah. Did
And he,
that surprise Steve when he saw the portion?
I think it did, but he had no problem eating it remorse. So,
Well, it came to me, so it must be mine. I'm gonna eat it
yeah,
all. I don't want to be rude.
yeah. And, you know, Steve did, he had I know he had one glass of wine. It was a pretty good sized glass of wine, and it did relax him. And he was kidding and stuff. But anyway, when we left the dinner table, we were going through the restaurant, and the restaurant had this decor where they had floor to ceiling columns.
Columns. Hmm.
Because you know it was an Italian restaurant, bringing back Rome, and I don't know if they're weight bearing or not, but there are quite a few of them. So I'm walking ahead of Steve, and Steve says, "Dave," he said, "if these columns are closer together, I'll pull them down for you."
That's fantastic. He said he felt so comfortable with you at that time, and that's so wonderful. I love that.
Yeah,
Because you don't hear those kind of stories,
no.
too much. And you were there, you experienced it. And what was your answer to that? Or did you have
Oh,
anything to say?
I just started laughing, but
Mm-hmm.
it rang a bell. For some reason, I was thinking of Duel of the Titans. You remember the torture wheel where
Mm-hmm.
he is being spun so fast? I said, Steve, that was you on the wheel. He said, yes. I said, but did it go that fast? He said, no, there's some special effects in there. I,
Ah,
and I've watched it, and I'm trying to figure out if they shot it maybe 18 frames per second and projected it at 24 or whatever. But he said, no, I was on the wheel. I definitely was on the wheel, not a stunt double.
yeah. And he didn't have a belly full of food either, thank
No.
God. Ah. Well, just a side note to all this. This is why I love, having guests like you on here. And this is why I love that 2008 Fitness and Film Festival. I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I was at your presentation. I was there with Joe Vitale and a couple other guys. This is why I'm trying to, start these retreats annually because you have so much fun. People have these stories, whether they heard them from a father or, somebody in their family about Steve, or the person themselves, like you, actually has stories. It's just fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, no, no, I'm happy to share them. I'm happy to share them. And, you know, and I run into people too, or I correspond with people as well that have stories of Steve. And a lot of the stories, you know, they ended up in the movie book or they ended up in George Helmer's newsletter or
Hmm.
Classic Physique magazine. So no, everybody has their own little stories. I know John Little, who has written so many articles on Steve. I don't know how many times he was at the ranch. He's got just an abundance of information on Steve.
Yeah, I need to reach out to him. He and I have talked a little bit on YouTube. He's got a great channel on Mike Mincer,
Oh
and he
yeah,
he
yeah,
does a great job with that channel.
yeah,
But yeah, we've communicated a little bit. I need to see if I can get him on here as well.
yeah.
I had somebody reach out to me a day or two ago who knew Steve. I'm not going to give the name out right now. I need to just verify a little bit before I go. But he had a great story about Steve and his horses. And Steve asked this gentleman, who I'm not going to name right now, if the gentleman wanted to buy Steve's prized horse. He had some power, he had some handy weights that he had bought from Steve. He showed me a picture of the box that Steve had addressed himself
Mm,
from Valley Center that he had sent to this person, and the two of them had a relationship. And anyway, I'll share more about that another time. But yeah, you're right. You hear so many different stories, and Steve just made such a huge impact on so
mhm,
many people.
mm,
And a side note from that, I bet you know this. So we have something called Bluetooth, the technology, right?
mhm.
Do you know where that name came from?
No, I don't.
Well, I didn't either until it just kind of popped up, but there was a Bluetooth technology was named after a Viking king by the name of Harold Gormson, who died over 1,000 years ago. And his nickname was Bluetooth, this Viking.
Hmm.
And the thought is that he loved to eat blueberries that permanently stained his teeth, or that he had a dead tooth that just turned blue. We don't know which what the truth is there,
Uh,
but I'm telling you, Steve Reeves will still be talked about 1,000 years from now. He was that fascinating and impactful of a person. Now, Steve, if he were here, he'd probably play it down, but you and I know better.
well, he would play it down, and the first time I met him when we had dinner, we sat down to have dinner, and he said, a guy came up to me today and said, Steve, I've waited my whole life to meet you.
I know,
And
I've heard this. Tell it again.
you know the story, yeah. And Steve was very nice to him. He says, "Oh, that's I'm glad to meet you," and blah blah blah. And then Steve said to us at the dinner, he said, "Boy, if that guy waited his whole life to meet somebody like me, he must have had a boring life." And then he said, "I don't think I had a boring life," and that was Steve's philosophy. We all have talent, we all have skills. Shoot for it, shoot for it. Don't get hung up on fans and fanaticism and all this other stuff. Just do what you can do,
Right.
make the best of everything. So,
Right. I like to think of it as, using this person's, life somewhat as a template, having integrity, having goals, being disciplined,
mm,
taking care of yourself physically, doing what you say you're going to do, integrity. So that's the way I look at this is Lord knows we need, you know, people whose lives we can follow and for me in physical culture, bodybuilding, fitness, Steve is a great person for me, and it sounds like he's a great person for a lot of you out
um,
there watching this.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, he was a role model for fitness, and he practiced a lot of good habits. He really did. He really did. So,
Okay, so we're going to wrap up that part of today's interview with Dave Dowling. He's got an announcement to make. Go ahead, Dave.
well, as we know, this book has been out of print for a while, and currently George Helmer and I are putting out a second edition of it. We're going to try to make it a little bit smaller, probably the size of building the classic physique. Okay, I don't know if you can see that.
Sure can.
And so we're going to shrink some pictures. I'm going to add some new information. But since your video, Scott, we've been approached by a few people.
Great.
When can I get the movie book? And so George and I are currently working on it. I would say we're shooting for June because there's a lot to do. There's a lot to,
I
you know,
bet. Well, good
uh,
for you guys.
there's a lot to do. We just can't take a file and transfer it over.
Oh,
It's got to be, totally laid out differently. We're going to change some pictures in it. As I said, we're going to add some text. We might have to subtract a little of the text, but we want to keep it manageable. I mean, George even said, we don't want it to have it in two parts, two volumes. I said, no, 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 we don't want to do that. So that's what we're working on. We're trying to come up with some kind of formula for reducing the size of it physically, but still containing most of the information. And it's taken a while, but so I would say look for June. I know George mentioned it on social media a while ago, but really it's quite underway right now. It's
Oh,
quite,
fantastic. Well, there you go, guys. You heard it first, if
yeah.
you hadn't already heard it from George. Anyway, I didn't know this, so that makes my day.
Okay.
Good for you guys. So, is this going to be a hard copy only, or would it be on Kindle?
Well, with the cost, it'll probably be just soft cover,
Okay,
and I'm sure it'll be Kindle as well.
Kindle as well. Good, because I
Yeah,
love reading books on my Kindle
yeah.
at night. That's one of my favorite ways to read books.
Hmm.
Perfect. Well, thank you for mentioning that to the audience here. Anything else?
No, well, I'll make some notes and we'll do a part three,
Let's
or
do it.
you know.
I got to tell you a side note. Had you heard that there's a movie coming out on Jack LaLanne with Mark Wahlberg as the main actor playing Jack LaLanne.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that.
So, Jack LaLanne and Steve Reeves were great friends. It was
Oh
said
yeah,
that Steve only had a few friends, and Jack LaLanne was one of them.
he was.
I know also that Mark Wahlberg is working with Jack LaLanne's wife, who's still very much alive in her 90s, and she is working to help flesh out the script. So this is going to
Wow.
be really on target, authentic.
Yeah.
Uh, I just heard this a month or two ago. I posted it somewhere, but I didn't know if you knew or not. So that's exciting.
No, that's news to me. Yeah, Steve and Jack knew each other well. I think he lived up in Morro Bay, California. I'm not
Hmm.
sure, but I talked to Jack on the phone after Steve passed when we were putting together a tribute issue, George's company there, Steve Reeves International, and I spoke to him on the phone. Obviously, he had nothing but great things to say about Steve. He talked about always Steve working out with 75-pound dumbbells. I do remember him saying that. So, but yeah, no, he said something like, "If there are more people like Steve Reeves in this world, it'd be a better world."
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that goes back to my point why I'm such a big fan of Steve's. That sums it up right there.
yeah.
All right, Dave. Well, it's been a pleasure. We're going to have you on again and again and again, and I can't wait to hear more about the book.
Okay.
So, thank you, everybody. We are going to end the video, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Scott. It was great.
All right, Dave. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, bye bye. That he turned down for different reasons. I mean, fistful was in the book. I think George and I called it a fistful of doubt. I think it should be retitled A Fistful of Regret because he did
Mm-hmm.
regret not taking that role.